I imagine when that orc charges over to the adventurer and tries to split him in twain, getting roundhouse kicked to death is probably not what they are expecting. Hello, I am AP Townley, and this is Roleplay Culture. So, monks in 5th edition. Yeah, certainly not the strongest of classes. And that comes from intimate experience, since the first character I played in 5th edition was a monk, and I played him for a couple of years. Poor damage dice on their martial arts die, average to lower AC and hit points. It means they can really struggle with any kind of sustained combat. And they eat through their key points faster than barbecue at a southern cookout. Monks are criminally weak in 5th edition. I'm not sure why they're so underpowered. As a whole, perhaps the developers put too much value in the monk being able to fight without any sort of equipment. Sure, that's nice in like an infiltration type game where maybe you let yourself get captured by the bad guys and taken into their lair only to use your martial arts prowess to fight your way free and open the gates for your allies. But I don't imagine that scenario comes up very often. So maybe the subclasses can save this class. Subclasses, as we remember, are a way to niche down to a certain theme for the class with a series of abilities. They are chosen between the levels of 1 and 3. For the monk, it is their monastic tradition, and they choose it at level 3, and we have 10 to choose from. But which is the best, and which is not? Which is going to earn us our black belts, and which is going to have us looking like a weeb? Now, these are just my opinions. I think any subclass can find a home in the right campaign at the right table. Instead of following the way of violence, perhaps we should follow the best way, the way of mercy. These monks have a very Tai Chi meets Reiki kind of vibe, where they focus on the manipulation of body energies to harm or heal. Starting at 3rd level, we get Implements of Mercy, which gives us some extra proficiencies. We get both Insight and Medicine. Insight is great for trying to determine someone's intentions, and Medicine is good to get someone back on their feet, or for certain types of investigations to determine like cause of death. Both are wisdom skills as well, which is appreciated. We also get proficiency with herbalism kits, which would allow us, amongst other things, to brew healing potions. We also have a merciful mask, which identifies our tradition. Things like ravens, crying and laughing visages, or a skull. A ribbon feature, but a creative one. Also at 3rd level comes Healing Hands. As an action, we can spend a key point to touch a creature and heal it for our martial arts die, which is a D4 at this point, plus our wisdom modifier. Not bad, but it's the next point that makes this a bit more interesting. If we choose to Flurry of Blows, that's where we would spend a key point to make 2 unarmed attacks with our bonus action. We can substitute 1 of those attacks for a Healing Hand. This Healing Hand costs no extra key points. Healing might not be the strongest thing you can do in 5th edition, but there aren't many features that let you attack as normal, spend a resource to attack 1 more time with your bonus action, and then throw some healing along the way. That's quite a lot. And remember, it's a creature, so we could technically heal ourselves if we so chose. Finally, we get Hands of Harm, which is a contrast to our Healing Hands. A lot of the subclass follows this design of contrasting abilities that fall into the healing or harming hands. Once per turn, when we make an unarmed attack, we can spend a key point to do an additional amount of necrotic damage, equal to our martial arts die, plus our wisdom modifier. So a little extra damage in a pinch, but it's not great, yet. At 6th level is Physician's Touch, which will improve our hands of healing and harm. When we use our hands of healing, we can also choose to end 1 disease or one of several conditions: blinded, deafened, paralyzed, poisoned, or stunned. Diseases are a little niche, but some of these conditions are pretty gnarly. Paralyzed allows for auto crits, and the poison condition gives like disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks. Speaking of being poisoned, we can also now, when we use our Hands of Harm, subject our enemy to the poison condition until the end of our turn. Yeah, it's only for a turn, or so, but the poison condition really sucks. And you notice that there is no saving throw to this? None. As long as you can hit, it just works. At 11th level, we get Flurry of Healing and Harm. When we Flurry of Blows, each of our unarmed attacks can now use the Healing Hands for no extra key cost. And in addition, during Flurry of Blows, our Hands of Harm no longer cost any key points. We still need to spend key on the Flurry of Blows, but we want to do that anyway. And now we get some extra damage and maybe some poisoning in there. These abilities do tamp down on the hungriness of key that this monk in general, and this subclass in particular, has. By this point, we can use our abilities with impunity as long as we're spending key on Flurry of Blows, which, as we said, we're almost always going to want to do anyway. And at 17th level, we get Hands of Ultimate Mercy. Once per long rest, and with the use of an action and 5 key points, you can resurrect a corpse that has been dead for no longer than 24 hours. It returns with the blinded, deafened, paralyzed, poisoned, and stun conditions removed, and with 4d10 plus our wisdom modifier and hit points. This might seem a little niche, but the game gets pretty dangerous by this level. And you would have to use Raise Dead for a similar effect. That costs us 5th level spell slot and 500 gold. And if you think 5 key points is pretty steep, just remember, we have 17 at this point, and they come back on a short rest. So how does the best subclass for the monk stack up? It's okay. It's about the best I can say about it. I was initially pretty meh about this subclass to begin with. I've come around to it. I like the flavor, and it does get pretty efficient as it levels. Being able to heal and do some extra damage while kicking butt sounds cool. But usually I'll say something like, if this is your best or worst, then you're doing pretty good. Not sure I can say that here. The monk is pretty weak, and I'm not sure the subclasses do much to prop it up. And this is coming from someone whose first character in 5th edition, and 3rd edition now that I think about it, was a monk, and I played them for several years. So I know intimately how much they can struggle. Don't get me wrong, it can still have its epic moments, which usually involve Stunning Strike, but they are less than I would like. So if it's the best, then what the heck is the worst? Well, have you ever wanted to be like an elemental bender from Avatar? Well, it's like that, but with more suck.
Right. There goes the savior of the world.
And that would be the Way of the 4 Elements, which is the worst. So this subclass works a little strangely. Instead of getting a series of features at predetermined levels, this is almost a bespoke subclass with a bunch of features that you choose for yourself. The mechanic is that the features allow you to cast spells, or spell-like abilities, that have an elemental theme with key points. These features are called disciplines, and here's how they work. Starting at 3rd level, you'll learn the Elemental Attunement Discipline and one other of your choice. And then at levels 6, 11, and 17, you'll learn 2 more disciplines each. Most of the disciplines are level locked, meaning they can't be chosen until certain levels anyway, which they do coincide with the levels you would normally get subclass features. Let's take a look at a few of these, starting with the Elemental Attunement, which all 4 elemental monks get. This is the only discipline that doesn't require any key points, and works a little like a cantrip. You can create harmless sensory effects related to the 4 elements: light, snuff candles, chill or warm up a non-living matter, cause matter of the 4 elements like earth, fire, water, and a 1-foot cube to take a crude design. It's a bit like prestidigitation. But let's look at something more serious. Fist of the 4 Thunders lets you spend 2 key points to cast Thunder Wave. First level area effect spell that does okay damage with a little area control in there. A similar discipline is Sweeping Cinder Strike, which lets you spend 2 key points to cast Burning Hands. Before we move on to the 6th level options, we need to talk about what we get at 5th level, because yeah, we kind of sort of get something at this level. We can start upcasting these spells by pumping more key points into them. For instance, that Thunder Wave previously mentioned costs 2 key points to cast. We could instead spend 3 key points to upcast it to a 2nd level spell, doing an extra 1d8 damage. There are limits to how much we can upcast. Simply put, every time your proficiency increases, that's 1 extra key point you can pump into a spell. So 3 at 5th level, 4 at 9th, and so on and so forth. At 6th level, we have options like Gong of the Summit, which for 3 key points lets us cast Shatter, a nice little AoE spell. Or Clinch of the North Wind, also for 3 key points, cast Whole Person. Good concentration and control spell. Interestingly enough, these are the only 6th level options, though there are still more 3rd levels we could fall back on if you didn't like those two. The 11th level has options like Flames of the Phoenix, which for 4 key points lets you cast Fireball, an even better AoE spell, but I'm not too sure how good it will be at 11th level. You also might be asking, how do we calculate a save DC? Well, it doesn't actually say. So we're going to assume we use our key save DC, since that says whenever we spend key points. But it would have been nice for a clarification there. We could also take Ride the Wind, which for the same cost gives us the Fly spell, but only on ourselves. It's a much more versatile ability. It's also a very Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I like it. 17th level has several wall options, like River of Hungry Flame, which for 5 key points lets us cast Wall of Fire. Good control spell, although again at 17th level, maybe a little late. But it's probably better than the Eternal Mountain Defense, which for the same price gives us Stone Skin, which is a terrible spell, made worse by the level that we're at. Now, there are more disciplines than we've mentioned, but I think we get the idea, right? So how does this subclass stack up? I think its biggest problem is that everything that it provides requires the expenditure of key points. Everything. Other subclasses have at least some things that don't require key, or at least will bundle the abilities together with other key spenders like Flurry of Blows, such as with the Way of Mercy. We're monks! We want to be punching and kicking and stunning our way through the battlefield. Giving us a few spells that can't be integrated into this mechanic seems weird. Fireball? Punch people. Can't I have both? If you think that after you cast Fireball, you'll just be able to Flurry of Blows anyway, sorry to disappoint. You can only Flurry of Blows, or even use it a martial arts attack, with an attack action. So, no dice. If you really want some magic to go with your monk, which is not a bad idea, just some multi-classing. Cleric could work. Way of Mercy meets Peace Domain. Could be interesting. And one last thing. The gulf between the best subclass Mercy and the worst 4 elements, not particularly wide. And I really don't mean that in a good way. Both are kind of weak. It's just one is weaker than the other. And this may be because the parent class is so weak. So here's hoping that D&D 24 will do right by the way of the 4 elements and the monk in general. It looks promising so far. So those are my thoughts on the best and worst subclasses for the monk in D&D 5e. Which is your favorite? The Mercy? Or maybe something like the Kensei? I quite like the Kensei, actually. Especially for multiclassing. What do you think is the worst? 4 elements? Or can we dump on the Sword Coast Adventuring Guide some more and pick on like the Way of the Long Death? Actually, I think the monk options for that book are okay. Be sure to subscribe, ring the bell, smash that like button, check out our other videos over here, and I'll see you in the parlor.